In terms of developing your social value contribution, it is about being prepared for these social value questions. It's about you as an organisation not worrying about the language sets and saying, actually, this is what we do, this is what we can bring. And what I've got for you here is a simple sort of 3-step approach to help you think about that with some examples of it in practice. So in terms of the 3-step approach, it's quite simple. The first thing is to consider what your business does. So reflecting on what the core value it brings and making sure that your social value contribution is linked to that core value. Because if it's linked to that core value, it's easier to deliver, it's easier to communicate, and staff and stakeholders can actually see that it's congruent as a response as an organisation. And we need to keep that simple. Secondly, what we need to do is systematically identify and acknowledge the environmental, social and economic impacts, both positive and negative, of our business. So in technical terms, that's called a materiality analysis, which sustainability professionals have stolen from the accountancy professionals many years ago. And it basically says, I'm going to systematically look at those environmental, social, economic, because they're relevant to my business now and going into the future. And lastly, it's to put a simple plan in place to reduce the negative and enhance the positive. And once again, it's not trying to change the world overnight, but it's saying I recognise these challenges from a social value point of view, and we've got these steps to respond. I just want to sort of, before I show you how to do that with examples of what it might look in practice, I just want to reflect on sort of three areas here, 3 business types, and just talk you through the social value element. And I worked with a large bank that will not be named, and on day one I asked them about their social value contribution, so what you're doing, and they told me, well, we've got recycling facilities across the head office, the lights go on and off when we walk in and out because they're on sensors, and we give 1 day's leave to staff if they take a day's leave to actually do a community project. So in effect, they gave them an extra day to do some social good. I wasn't really that impressed, if I'm honest, because if I look at the core business of a bank and what it actually does, then it provides access to capital, it invests, it actually supports businesses. So their social value contribution is all about where they invest, how they make it easy for small businesses to start up, how they bring financial awareness to young people. So the social value contribution is not about switching lights off in the office. It's a good thing to do. I'm not saying it isn't, but the reality is that actually what I want to hear about is around their core business strategy. And that's key. And if I look at a university, and I've worked with many universities, around 10 years ago, what universities were mostly focused on was around the management of the estate, because obviously they have big campuses, they buy a lot of stuff, they use a lot of stuff, they waste a lot of stuff, they use energy. So the environmental dimension of a university has always been the focus, and it's for many years. And then I started to get involved with universities, and we asked the question, what is your core business? Where's the most value you can bring? Because you're managing some of the environmental impacts down, but actually, what about the social value you create, and where does that come from? Well, if you're the University of Manchester, for example, you're educating 40,000 students a year, you're employing 10,000 staff, you're doing research which is actually trying to change the nature of the world. So actually the social value contribution is locked up in the student experience, the development of their skills, knowledge and capacity. It's how the staff actually utilise their skills, not only for the students but for the broader community. And it's blurring that interface, if you like, between the student experience, the opportunities you provide them, and the community. So all of the social value is locked into the core business. The management of the estate is just something they need to do to deliver the value as an organisation. And it's it's at the heart of social value. It's thinking about where do we contribute. Now, a clothing manufacturer, I'm going to give you an example that I did with the University of Bristol on that. So it's that thinking. So ask yourself, what does our business do? What does our business really bring? Because that's where the extra social value is actually delivered. I use a very simple process to actually doing this analysis, because why not keep it simple? And it's a positive and negative column, environmental, social, economic. And if you described a business, a bank, a university, then we can start to populate that table. And it just keeps it really simple. And that population process also encourages the business, yourself if you're a business owner, the team that's working on this and responding to social value criteria. It gets them in the headspace of thinking a bit more holistically, if you like, around what our business value is and where the opportunities are. The opportunities to enhance the positive, opportunities to reduce the negative. And I'm showing you an example here on screen of this process as it was done in procurement. So Ayr University, University of Bristol was looking at purchasing sports clothing for their rugby team and football team. So it's all the kit they wear. And what I did is take them through an impact analysis of that clothing. So what we started to look at is actually from raw materials through manufacture, through transportation, through use and disposal, what were the environmental, social and economic impacts that could be associated with that? And we long listed it, as you can see. So everything from raw materials to disposal to packaging on the environmental side. And what you'll also see is actually we didn't find many positive environmental impacts. And often, unless you're an environmentally focused organisation involved in biodiversity regeneration, then actually there's not many environmental positives, because we all travel, we all use stuff, we buy, we consume, we use energy. We have a negative environmental impact. So don't get hung up when you're doing this analysis that actually we haven't got loads of positives at the analysis stage. And this is the analysis stage. And as you can see, we work through the social and the economic. Now, this brings out many of the issues that are pertinent to the public sector at the moment. They're particularly interested in modern slavery. They're particularly interested in inclusion, and I'll come on to that a little bit later. But this analysis at a sports clothing level works for a bank, it works for a manufacturer, ICT companies. It's the same process. So it's that materiality analysis to think about strategically what your issues are. And I use issues not in a negative context. It's a fact. We do have negative impacts, but we also have positive ones. So when you go through this process, it puts you in a position to say, right, well, if we're going to have a social value action plan, we're going to try to have that impact, then what we need to do is systematically have a plan to reduce these negatives and enhance the positives. And I hope that makes some sense. It's a really simple process. I've taught a lot of public sector procurers to use this. I know many police forces are starting to do it. Many universities are starting to do it, because it gets them in the headspace of actually what are the social value issues that we do want to talk to people about. What are they? And this helps them get in that place. So it's good for you to do it as a business, because you then know what are the issues that you might be asked about and have potential responses in place. So in terms of demonstrating your social value, what we're actually looking at, here's a little sort of plan if you were going to do it. So the first at the bottom stage is to reflect on the business. What is your core contribution, like we've talked about? And don't get sucked into actually we manufacture loads of stuff, but actually our contribution is a bit of recycling in head office, because it doesn't cut it. It doesn't cut it. It never really cut it, but it's moved on from there. So it's actually what at the core do we do as a business and what's our contribution? That analysis, if you like, of environmental, social and economic impacts for the business. So I've shown you a way you can do that on using a simple table. However you do it, however you do that assessment, you need to do that and record it, so you understand what's in place. And that recording of it and then developing that action plan is the next stage. And be realistic. You can't change everything overnight, but actually public procurers want to see that you're actually making strides in that direction. So actually, this is where we are now. We've done the analysis. We're now making steps to move in that direction. These are the critical issues we're going to address. So we prioritize those. And that allows you to communicate it not only to the potential clients in the public sector, but also to staff, because they'll engage with clients. So we need to upskill them in terms of this language and just demystify it for them and keep it simple. And lastly, be prepared to articulate this as part of the tender response. You might get asked more and more specific things going forward, but to be prepared by understanding what's being asked is absolutely critical when you're completing a tender, as I do, as I complete tenders. It's getting under the skin of what they're trying to get to, and developing my own social value response as a business helps me with that.